Hey everybody, I'm Laura DeCarlo, President of Career Directors International. If you're currently thinking about starting, or actively building a resume writing or career coaching business, I am so glad you're joining me today. In this show, we share tools, strategies, and mindset tips that lead to your success without the stress. We are currently streaming on CDI's Facebook page, YouTube channel, and LinkedIn page. But I'm not going to make you jump through any crazy hoops to confirm who you are. I'm just going to ask that when you comment in the chat, please include your full name at first until we know what we can see and what we can't, because there's nothing worse than trying to have a conversation and all I see is LinkedIn user. And if you don't know me yet, my goal is to become your not so secret superpower. At Career Directors International, we provide everything you need to love and excel at what you do so you can make a difference while also earning an exceptional living as a career industry professional. And today and throughout September's International Update Your Resume Month, that's a registered holiday. CDI registered it 24 years ago to help job seekers do a better job at career maintenance and career caretaking. This event is obviously open to job seekers as well. We're going to be talking today about the 10 key components of winning resumes, and I'm excited. One lucky attendee is going to win, again, a free Kindle copy of my book, Resumes for Dummies, 8th edition. Last week, we did give one away to Cherise Green. So if you were here last week, give me a, I'm back in the chat. But before we get into our topic today, I want to ask you to do 3 simple things. The first one is say hello. Go ahead and go to the chat. Remember to include your full name. And let me know who you are and where you are joining us from. Second, if you have questions or want to share on a topic as we go today, please put it in the chat. And third, of course, please be sure to like, follow, and or subscribe depending on your platform so that you know when we go live every week. That's 3:45 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. So again, last week I did not put my topic up. I feel like I should put it up there. So if somebody's going by online, they'll see. This is our topic, 10 key components of winning resumes. And it's interesting, I have 10, but I was looking online, for SEO when I was setting up the landing page where you'll be able to get all the great resources on this topic. And I saw so many had 5, and I'm like, okay, but this is why we know that at Career Directors International, you learn how to do things the best way, because we're not cutting corners and going, here's the bare minimum. All right, I see some things in the chat. Let's see. Arisha Schaefer. Hi, Laura. Ari from Colorado here. Hi, Ari. So glad to see you. It's been a little while. And I also see Janine Bennett. I can see both your names. Actually, I can see all 3 people's names so far. So Janine says, hi, Laura. Janine Bennett from Virginia Beach, Virginia. And Sean Cook says, Sean Cook from Athens, Georgia. Hi, Sean. Hi, Janine. Hi, Ari. If anybody else has joined us, please say hello in the chat. Include your full name the first time and where you're coming in from. And that's so interesting to me because some of you I know really well, and I don't know where you live. So I love asking that off the bat. And I'm like, okay, I'll try to remember this time. All right, if you are ready to start talking about my 10 top strategies, go ahead and give me a let's go in the chats, or yes, or whatever you want. Okay. All right. So, to me, this topic is pretty super foundational, and I kind of see it as a checklist, although I am going to potentially get a little bit wordy in places. And I understand, right now, all I'm seeing in the chat is professionals in the industry. But if you have questions, somebody else joining us who hasn't piped up yet, please go ahead and put it in the chat as we go. All right, Ari and Janine both say yes. Okay, so before I get into it, well, you don't need to tell me this, but I know you guys are all professionals that I can see. Do we have any job seekers here? If you can say hello in the chat, just so I know, who is here, that would be really wonderful. All right, my first, and this is going to apply well, let me say it and then I will talk about it. So my first is to create a master or core resume if there are going to be multiple varying job targets. And those of you who do this for a living and aren't just trying to write your own resume, I'm sure you've seen that, where you get job seekers who come to you and I see a LinkedIn user. I can't see your name. I just see hello. So if you could comment your name, that'd be fabulous. So who here does this? I'll say that first, and then I'll put it in. I'll ask that, and you can just wait and hear what I'm going to say. So I love a single master resume. If somebody comes to me and they're like, well, I'm an associate, I'm in HR for nonprofits and associations, and I think I'll stay there, but I'd sure like to also be able to pursue positions in for-profit companies. And I'm like, okay, that's just one master core resume that I'm going to have you approve first, because it's going to be so close. It's just going to be subtle word changes if we have to do a second core resume. And I should probably back up in case we do have any lurking job seekers or newbie resume writers here, and say, a master or core resume is not something you ever send out. Maybe you might use it in networking, but it's based on the premise that we're going to put in every potential achievement that's relevant to our targets. And we're going to put in all the keywords, and we're going to have this master document there for us to pull from, so that when it comes to customizing and targeting, which is my number 2, we are able to save this master document under another name and really hone in to match a job posting that we have seen, so that we can be sure that we're going to hit as many boxes as the individual is qualified for. Obviously, we're always doing this on a truth-based process. But we want to check as many boxes as we can, because a initial human scan, I talked to you last week about the 3 most common paths your resume can take. So a human scan, they're looking for certain words, and they're looking for them fast. And a machine scan is looking for those words, and it can scan a whole document, but if they're not there, it can hurt you. And sometimes people have very specific language that a company you worked at might not use. So it's so important to have what I call this overall document first. Now, I believe all professional resume writers do this. We've got this core, well, only if you have, I back that up. Getting excited here, because this is a very overarching topic that I put a lot of time to initially in Resumes for Dummies and in my training programs. This isn't something you will need if somebody comes to you with I'm an electrical engineer, I've been an electrical engineer, I'm staying an electrical engineer. In situations like that, your master core resume is going to be something they could use for networking and that they're going to target. This is more if you have people who have a lot of diversity and you want to just make sure we're getting it all out, and then they can cherry pick what to use when they apply. Does that make sense? If it does, and of course if it doesn't, please let me know in the chat, because that's my first tip, is that especially if you have lots of different opportunities, or you've accomplished a lot of things and you found that jobs ask for pieces and parts, but you're maybe overqualified or flexible, that master or core resume is a great place to start, even though it's just going to live in your computer and not necessarily be sent out. So I see LinkedIn user says, hi, Sean Wessner from Pennsylvania. Hi, Sean. Thank you so much for commenting your name, because I'm only seeing LinkedIn user otherwise. So let me know if that makes, okay, so Sean Cook says that makes sense, and Ari says that makes great sense. All right, that is the most confusing one I have on this list. So if you've listened to that and gone, what is she talking about? No worries. The rest, I believe, are going to make great sense. And again, any questions, let me know. All right, so the second, and I feel this is very, 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 very important. This is a step no one should skip. And that's to target each resume to the specific job from start to finish. Now, you might say, well, what if it's not a posted job? Well, you can go look at the company's website. You can look at other postings they've had. You can still get very close without a specific description. But in most cases, especially if you are a professional in this industry, you found, or actually, even if you're a job seeker, most of the times the idea is, here's a job I want to apply for, and it's an ad. And really, very timely today, I was talking to a CDI member earlier today, and we were discussing the whole resume isn't a magic bullet. And this person who had applied to a ton of positions on Indeed and was getting very little interviews. And I explained that this is often because a job seeker puts, and a lot of resume writers, if you're not providing the foundational education to your clients, after you hand them a great resume that sells them and is targeted to the type of position, or the position in general and not a particular ad, because unless somebody brings you an ad, even then you're often going to go, let's create that core first and spin off a specific one for that particular ad. So the problem is that if we create a one-size-fits-all resume for a particular type of position, it's not going to necessarily mirror the specific language and requirements that the target company has. And so, you might appear qualified, and you probably are very qualified, or your candidate's very qualified, but that tailoring can make all the difference. Because think about when you've ever received a generic letter or voicemail or email, and you tune out really quickly. But when somebody has taken the time to tailor something, there's this serendipitous feeling. I think it's almost a psychological effect that happens where you're you resonate with it, right? Because it's so perfectly mimicking what you're looking for. And again, everything I say, we want to make sure that we're not putting in content just to put in content. If you don't have the qualifications or your candidate doesn't, there is a little workaround for new grads that I have as my 11th tip, if you will. But in most cases, please always stick to the truth, because it will bite you in the long run. Targeting is very simple, and it might only take you 15 to 20 minutes per resume. But if the ROI, return on investment, is super high, and you get, interviews for most of the positions you're qualified for, then it's worth that little bit of extra time you take. And if you're a CDI Association member, we actually have a done-for-you white-labeled tip sheet that I will make sure I link to with this recording on the replay page, because it's a great resource. You can brand it with your company information. It doesn't say anything about CDI, aka white labeled. You can give it away, you can sell it, but it's written to job seekers on how to customize each of their resumes. But the very simple version is all you have to do is have job description in front of you, have resume, tweak keywords, make sure you've addressed the things they're looking for in the resume, keyword phrases, examples of the use with stories and results. That's another item here. So let me ask, who agrees that targeting the resume is a critical element of successful resume writing? Let me know in the chat. And while you're doing that, I'll add, as I was listening to this person earlier tell me about the person who's coming to her, this is not from this professional's resume that's had all these over 100 resumes sent out and no interviews. So this is a person who's trying to figure out, why am I, not being successful like this? And I was able to point out that, the exact opposite is when my husband, and yes, I don't write a lot of resumes because I'm busy teaching resume writing to professional resume writers. And, trying to guide the industry and keep you all abreast of techniques. So I don't work with job seekers, but I do work with my husband. So I get to see every time he wants to target a bigger and better aerospace company, how well it will work, right? And this past year, when he wanted to get into one of the top 5 DoD contractors for aviation and aerospace, he got in. And it was a combination of a targeted, tailored resume. And I'll add this as a bonus that's not even in this topic. But I was telling this person earlier, I'm like, you go all in to stand out. And that means that even though they don't require a cover letter, we customize that resume to match that job as much as possible. We fine tune a cover letter to position for that job. And so when there is that opportunity to upload additional items, we also try to skip the easy apply and go right to the company to do it. But when there's that option to upload other things, we upload a cover letter. We upload a reference page showing, hey, this is how confident I am in my value that I'm already giving you references. Are they going to call references now? Heck no. Of course they're not going to call references on somebody they haven't even met yet. But they are going to be more enthusiastic about somebody who gives them different perspectives and is already standing out as someone with who's not afraid and confident to have these value adds. And then we also did our networking to have somebody walk in his resume. And as his resume was walked in, the person who was hiring for the position was like, yep, he's already on my short list. So covering your bases makes all the difference. And that may sound like a lot, but you either want or need a new position, or you want your clients to be as successful as possible. You don't tell them cover letters are optional. You don't skimp and not do the cover letter. You do the things that make the difference, and you get hired faster. All right, Ari says, absolutely. It's sort of like neuro-linguistic programming a bit. You use their keywords, emphasize where your strengths and their needs converge. Feels like a good fit for the reader. Yes, yes, yes. Janine says, targeting is important. And Sean Cook says, targeting is absolutely essential. I always tell my clients that in a job search, quote, focus is your friend. Want a long job search? Try to have a one-size-fits-all resume. Well said, Sean. Love it. All right. So let's move on to my third. So I talked a lot on my second. I did not script this because I was like, you'll just say what you need to say on these. And you just never know. And that's what I like, though, because we can ebb and flow with what we need. So third is to include a unique selling proposition, or what I might refer to as a personal brand section in the top third of the first page. So this is, let's be clear, because I know somebody's going to drop in on this recording and, somebody's always jumping to conclusions or hearing what they want to hear. That's just some human nature, right? This is a snapshot that absolutely can get ignored in the first round reviews. Sometimes recruiters don't care at all about them. So, can it make a huge difference for ATS or a human reviewer who's scanning in seconds? That depends on what you put in there. But quite honestly, our goal with this section, and the resume writers who I have found have the greatest amount of success, and I say resume writers because most job seekers aren't going to know how to do this because they take too much for granted about their value. And just, I've heard it hundreds of times when I had my private practice, which is, I do my job. And they're taking for granted that their, sense of professionalism and even deciding to work with a resume writer often predicates the fact that they have a stronger work ethic. And I've just seen that correlation. And that they're probably somebody who's, showing up, doing their very best every day and thinks everybody else does that too, and doesn't realize that a lot of there's people out there slacking and whatnot. So I always think of the summary section, which doesn't mean it's a paragraph. There are so many different formats that this can take. And if you go check out our Tory winning resume page, You can see just so many diversity of styles on how to present this. Because remember, a resume is marketing. It's not a autobiography of everything that a job seeker has done. It is a marketing tool to focus on a particular niche position to get in the door for that interview. So I always feel like even if that summary is getting ignored by those initial audiences, that's fine because it's not who it was written for. That summary section, that unique selling proposition component of a resume, is written for once you've survived all of the initial screenings and now you're in that smaller maybe stack. If that's virtual or some people still print, whatever. But now you're in a group of candidates who all look qualified. Okay, so if everybody has the same skill set, that's like a group of gray cars driving down the street. I can't tell the difference between them, even if they're, well, I mean, if they're sports cars, but let's just say mid-class sedans, right? They're all driving down the street. They could be, one of them could be worth 100,000 and one of them could be worth 10,000. Unless it's beat up, I'm not really going to know. So it could be a status symbol, like we don't really see anyway, you get my idea here. So the summary shouldn't just be like a general overview of skills. It should be where you can get a decision maker who understands what they're looking at, and they're trying to decide who stands out to me, who do I want to meet, who do I want to talk to. This is where we want to emphasize the ROI, the potential ROI to the bottom line of the company. And that doesn't mean that you're in a sales job where you're making money, or that your candidate is in a sales job. It literally means what is this individual doing on a daily, monthly, yearly, one-shot opportunity, but where are you being a cost savings, a profitability, a time savings, a quality improvement, an excellence, a customer satisfaction increase, a churn decrease. I mean, it can very, very much vary. And for job seekers themselves, it can be really hard to think of these things, again, taking it for granted. And for resume writers, you got to be able to dig, you got to be able to ask the right questions. And as I always say, go down the rabbit hole looking for that carrot, asking leading question after leading question to find those nuggets. And I found that sometimes I used to even often have to say, think about with this responsibility, also let me know if there was anything that was improved, or you found a better way to do it, even if you were the only one who noticed. Because being someone who finds ways to be more efficient in their own job productivity is still saving the company money and has a mindset of efficiency and productivity, and we can spin that. So don't get downtrodden if you as a job seeker or you as a resume writer gets candidates who don't have fabulous, achievements. They can't say that they raised this or lowered that. Look for the stories. Look for the ethics. Look for the traits. Those can be as powerful in jobs where metrics aren't involved. Let me know your thoughts on what your take is on the summary section, and what you think about that, and the whole idea of it being the hook that gets an employer excited and goes, this is a candidate I want to talk to you, because they're not just responsibilities, right? They've gone above and beyond that. There was a question in there too, if that wasn't clear. So I guess I could say who includes summary sections, and who believes you should definitely focus on, using it to help the candidate stand out from the competition. How's that version sound? All right, while we are waiting for that, I'm going to go to my fourth, because otherwise we're going to be here forever. I just looked at the clock. I feel like I've been talking forever, but we've only been here for 25 minutes, so we're doing good. So fourth on the list is keyword section. which typically shows up after some type of a summary section. And I do these even if the candidate is a new graduate, they're changing industries, or the experience is from volunteer work. It's, again, about the little changes in the language that for some reason I've decided to hold out and talk about that as a number 11 bolt-on. So I'm not going to say what to do for new grads now just to be a tease. So you can stay till the end because you want to too, because somebody's going to get the book. And last week I based it on participation in the chat. So we shall see. Can't promise I'm doing that again, but that's what it was last week. That could be a hint. Who knows? All right. So there are different schools of thoughts. I see resume writers who don't include a keyword section because they feel like, well, I've put the keywords in the body of the resume, so it's not necessary. I subscribe to a absolutely different school of thought, and that is that we always have a 2 to 3 column, or sometimes if it's a shorter keyword list, maybe it's centered and separated with commas or symbol bullets between them. Whatever looks neatest and visually easy to scan. It's going to vary from resume to resume with the content for sure. Why I think this is so important and why I never neglect it is because those first 2 audiences, again, that I talked about in the show last week, one of them is a human who may hire for this position, but they hire for all, they're involved in the hiring, usually HR, for all kinds of positions throughout the company or all in the engineering area. They're not always and very rarely going to be experts in the actual niche of the job seeker. They're going to be experts in doing their HR job. If this is a human, or if it's a small company, or you just never know. But I always feel like I would like to cover my bases. So one of my bases is help a human being that may give my resume 4 to 6, maybe 7 seconds of time, help them see a list where they can go, okay, he has this, he has that, he has that. That's what I'm looking for. Yay. I'll put them in the maybe pile for, the person who's taking the next step. Or this is me just cutting down on my list of who's completely not qualified and who appears to be qualified at a glance. And ATS, the current day ATS is, it really doesn't matter where in the resume it is, as long as it's there. But I don't know. I always still think, I've talked to people, I know resume writers who are on versions, and this is not like to cast a disparaging look on resume writers, but I've seen resume writers working with like such old versions of Word or not having Word at all that I'm like, how is that even possible that you can even get access to something I was using like 18 years ago? Conversely, there are employers who are behind the times, and it used to be make sure all your keywords appear in the first 2/3 of the first page to ensure that they do get scanned. ATS wise, that's not an issue, but why would I, sometimes old school is good. I make sure that it is human front loaded. And it works very, very well. So very much consider doing that. And it also makes it very easy then to tailor changing the keywords based on a specific job ad. So in the chat, give me your approach to quickly introducing keyword matches for job targets. I would love to hear. And it is okay if your approach is different than mine. I'm just telling you why I value that as important. All right, let's see. Ari says to my last point, brand is the first thing I work on with clients so they can run their entire job search from that place. It helps them come up with that unique value proposition. Fabulous. And Janine says, yes, absolutely. Like you said, it is a marketing piece, so you have to have something to wow the reader up front so they will want to read more. So I'm thinking about one of my future topics, between now and through September is Update Your Resume Month. I definitely want to talk about the whole busting blank page syndrome, which is really probably only going to be relevant to more, more new resume writers and a lot of job seekers. But well, you know what? Actually, I take that back. If you're an award-winning resume writer or you've got a CDI certification, then you're going to know this stuff. But it's super valuable because I see resumes so often that are more two-dimensional, and we only get three-dimensional based on the content. That's kind of like that whole, when you've heard me talk about early when AI started to become a thing, and I was like, garbage in, garbage out. And that is the issue with resumes. If the content isn't there initially, you're going to have issues with the output. So more information can be valuable. So I love the topic of busting blank page syndrome. If that sounds interesting, I know I'm asking 2 questions now, but if that sounds interesting as a topic that you think would be valuable, let me know in the chat. And don't just say yes so that you'll have more answers towards winning the book. All right. Number 5 is to include, so how far are we going to go with employment dates? That's my topic on there. And I want to, again, really quick before I talk about that, I just saw a note I had for myself, and it's definitely go to the replay page and make sure you look up the Tory award-winning resumes, because there are so many ways to do that summary, and you want to make sure you avoid just popping a thick paragraph on the top. We're not looking for a 2-inch thick frosting on a 1-inch high cake here. We're looking at how do you say it, how do you present that unique selling proposition. But most people aren't going to read a paragraph. So we want to present information in a way that they can easily scan. All right, so employment dates. This one I can get through really, really quickly. And yes, there are always going to be exceptions to the rule. So if you're joining us here today and this leads to questions for you, let me know in the chat. But my basic rule of thumb for most scenarios where, especially if the job seeker has been, continuing a path of job search and it's unbroken by, time away for things that happen in life to all of us at some point, we will typically use about 2 to 4 jobs and approximately 10 to 15 years. That is not in any way set in stone. I think if I had a takeaway, especially for job seekers or newbie resume writers, it would simply be you don't want to date your client. You don't want to date yourself because it can be just as damaging to give away your age, not because you're too old, because ageism does exist, but I have found that everyone who prepares as part of their job search process, like if you think you're potentially or your client's potentially going to be a victim of ageism, it's time to do a SWOT analysis, just like somebody would do for marketing. And that's look at your strengths, look at your weaknesses, look at your opportunities, look at your threats. And you can Google that and find questions to ask yourself or your client on each one of those. I go deep into it with sub-questions if you've ever taken the Certified Employment Interview Consultant course through CDI. But you figure these things out and then you fix them. Like if your last company didn't require you to stay up to date with today's software, you go take a class for that, or read a book, or do an online tutorial or a LinkedIn class. If your haircut clothing is out of date, and you're trying to apply to companies that are younger and hipper, even if go to TJ Maxx, go to Ross. It's not like you have to spend hundreds to, be in. And for anybody who listens to this and says, well, I shouldn't have to change who I am for a company. And I'm like, when you get hired by a company, you represent their brand. And companies tend, even in this day and age of trying to be diverse and inclusive and open, somebody is not going to is not necessarily going to be comfortable hiring somebody with like a nose piercing and blue hair, for a corporate customer facing type role. So I know I went, wow, where did she go with that? We were just talking about dates and years. But things like, because I'm talking about ageism as part of the why we don't put a lot of dates on. If you really want to work at a company, you need to recognize that you need to be a fit, and don't be angry if you choose not to make that change. Some of you will get a kick out of hearing this about me, but when I was in my 20s, I used to teach. I used to go to the local. I was already running my private practice as a resume writer and career coach, and I was also had moved into part-time being the director of career planning and professional development for a private university. And I had an opportunity to talk to a program at a local high school that was for students who had missed a lot of time due to things like pregnancy and giving birth, or juvenile detention, things that come up in, some people's lives. And they were trying to get them to graduate on time. And they wanted me to talk about, employability and resumes and things like that. So, the first time I went in with my little rose-colored glasses on, and that's not an actual physical thing, that was just a rosy view of the world. I very quickly realized I needed to change my approach, because showing up to these students wearing my little suit made no sense. So the next time I came dressed much more, still professionally, but casually, and I blew up some photos of me while I was in college to like really big pictures. And I brought them in, and when I was in college, I was very much a pretty goth. Okay, I was never done the black lipstick, but I believed in being pretty yet unapproachable. If those are two things that can exist in the same sentence. But I had long black curly hair and leather jacket, sitting on a Harley in one of the photos that I showed them. And in another, I think I had me with my boa constrictor, which now you couldn't get me within yards of a snake. But, hey, there's some interesting facts about me. So I showed them the couple of pictures, and then I said, last week you met me in a suit, but this is what I looked like, X years ago. And I said, when I chose to look like this, I could have had the mindset that I'm hearing from each of you, which is I shouldn't have to change to work somewhere. And the reality is that you don't have to change at all about how you want to look and how you want to show up, but you might need to change if you want to work a particular place. And I said, for me, this is what I wanted to look like. So throughout graduate school, before I decided to become more normal in my attire, I'm not normal, you guys know that, right? Tell me in the chat who knows Laura walks to her own beat in all her hula outfits and hair flowers. But I explained to them that, when I was in college, I worked at a video game arcade, a movie theater, and a comic books and collectibles business. And they were fine. That was the type of customer they attracted. So it fit in perfectly well. But when I wanted to not scare off job seekers and students, it was important to me to be what they expected. And, if I wasn't in today's wonderful world, I could attract the tribe of people who would love me for looking that way. But I wanted to attract a lot of people, so I changed. So do not hold things like ageism or the way, you decide. Only apply to the places where they embrace that sort of thing. And you can often tell by their ads and their websites, right? So, okay, I feel like I'm not getting anything in the chat from the last 3 questions I asked. Who am I going to give this book to if nobody participates? Where'd you guys go? So let me know how far back you usually go on your resumes. And if you remember any of the other questions, hit me with some of those answers as well. And I will move on to number 6, and that is to massage data that will otherwise hurt you, or if you're the resume writer, the candidates. So we've already talked about dates in that element. And listen, I know my camera doesn't often pick up my background noise, but if you can hear the crying in the background, I swear I am not ignoring a baby. That is a cat. And she's been so well behaved, I didn't think I needed to hide her. Evidently I did. But all right. So massaging data that can hurt you as a job seeker, hurt your job seeking candidate who you're writing for. This means, if there's Janine says she goes back 7 to 10 years. Thanks, Janine. This can take all different kinds of forms, but I always like to say, don't put a dangerous hobby on your resume if it's not relevant. Don't put religious affiliation if it's not relevant. Don't put political affiliation if it's not relevant. Be very, very careful in how you present gaps in your resume, which is a whole big subject unto itself. But I once had a candidate come to me. He was a former quality assurance director in NASA and related companies, and he had a stroke and been out of work for 14 years. And on his resume, he literally had, recovering from a stroke. That's, even though that's true, marketing, I'm sure we all have our spin on what marketing is, but this is marketing. And you don't ever see marketing for a product come out and go, yeah, you're going to love our vacuum, except for these 3 stupid problems it has that we can't fix. I'm sure you've all, I love Amazon reviews because it helps me decide, and I can figure out, well, that person's just crazy in their review because everybody else loves it. But you keep seeing the same thing over and over again. You start to go, I might want to look at a different vacuum. But we massage it. We figure out how to spin for the win and not hurt ourselves with the information we give away. Not lying, but just deciding what to present. I'll give you a quick example. I worked with a candidate very early in my career when I didn't realize, she wanted, I did realize, because I was like, you need a bachelor's degree for that. And she was like, and we couldn't find any ads to prove that. And she believed it wasn't true. And I agreed to write the resume. And she initially, on her resume that she brought me, had high school on it. And then there was no college or continuing education. So I literally took off the education section completely and built the resume on everything she brought to the table to be a match for that job. And yes, she did get an interview. And yes, she did have to come back to me and say, all right, help me retarget this, because when they found out I didn't have a bachelor's degree, they loved me, but they're like, come back when you've got one. So, that's an example of leave it off. Just leave it off if it's going to hurt you. Put it on if it's going to help you. And if you don't have a clue, I'm begging you to get help, because there is a talented professional out there who knows how to do it. And if they haven't done it before, they know how to find it in my book or ask me directly as a member of CDI or in the support group that I run on Facebook. So let's see. Arisha said, when I said, is anybody here? She said, I'm here. My cat is talking to your cat, by the way. I can only imagine. Oh, she's been driving me crazy. She's so sweet, but she's a little bit nutty. You can see her here. This is very mouthy cat. All right. Number 7. And we're 2/3 of the way through here. Number 7 is to utilize cross the bridge wording when the candidate is changing industries or job targets. And even when they're not, cross the bridge, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So I'll stop and explain that. I think that would be very helpful. So this is what we've already been talking about when we were talking about mirroring back keywords and content, when Arisha said earlier about neuro-linguistic programming and how it was similar to that in the unique selling proposition. And that's the same thing here, in that you want to talk as much as you can as they talk. And in what you see on their website, in their ads, in their their social approach. And so this specifically comes into play where it matters most is when you are writing about jobs you've held in the past, even if they were in a different industry or for a different type of position. Like, it's one thing to be a project manager over here in, this industry, and then become one over here in this industry. You're still using similar project management words. It's a whole nother thing often to have a title like mortgage processor. I'm thinking about a particular client I worked with that I use as an example in one of CDI's lessons on cross the bridge language. If you're, say, have the title of mortgage broker or kitchen designer for Home Depot, and you're now looking to become a project manager because you've completed training and certification through the Project Management Institute. In that case, we need to we need to look at what did you learn and what is the job you're targeting require. And then we need to look at your job description. And so much more powerful if we can rewrite your responsibilities so they march right over the bridge from where you're standing in your profession as a kitchen designer to a project manager. And they look at it and they're like, oh, kitchen designer. But we're smart. We put project manager in front of that. And then after that, we put actual title, kitchen designer. And then in the description, instead of saying things like, helped homeowners to select this and that and blah, 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 we're looking at what are the words used by project management. And it's like manage consumer projects from end to end, focusing on budgets. You get my idea here, and I actually there's a sample resume, and again, I will link to the lesson where I show resumes and I show examples of cross the bridge, but this can work anywhere. I've had situations, and you typically figure it out if this is something you're trying to do for yourself or this is a new concept for you as a resume writer, because I don't meet a lot of resume writers who do this because it takes some complex logic, and I believe we could probably do some pretty cool things with AI to help us do this. I'm now really, really curious. I'm going to have to go because I have the before and after resume included with the language. But I have to take some of that before language and see if it comes close at all on its own. Not that I'm saying resumes should be written all with AI, but it's a very helpful tool for so many things. Okay. Come back to, I get very excited, can you tell? But this is super, super powerful. And the example I was going to give was when I was in the university setting and I had a student who was like, but you don't understand. I'm going into IT and I'm coming from being a public school bus driver. I don't have anything they want. And we actually did I was in front of a class, right? So get on the board, and I did a T-chart, and we listed every skill the person used, plus the things they'd learned in school. And then we talked about how we could cross the bridge and translate them. Super, incredibly powerful. And if you want to effectively make any kind of a change, industry, job, this is a technique that should be used. And even if you're not, again, if you're resonating with a particular ad and changing and tweaking language to match by crossing the bridge, so much more powerful. Who likes that crossing the bridge analogy and does those types of techniques? Let me know in the chat. All right, number 8. What time is it? All right, should be picking up speed, but we're not. All right. Number 8 is to make content visually appealing and easily consumable. So first off, remember that you're dealing with HR and recruiters who see the same thing over and over again, day in and day out. They also get shocked by things that are trying really hard and simply not missing the mark, like just bright colors for color's sake when it's not really a value-added thing. visual appeal, we don't need to be extreme, but there are situations where that can apply. I mean, I've had so many projects where like the fine artist who now wants to go into advertising, or the down on his luck catering chef who lost his company due to life events and is now riding his bike to a sous chef role, and he wants to be a chef on a private yacht, or the tugboat captain who suddenly decides he should be Royal Caribbean's next captain for the first cruise boat coming out of Canaveral, Cape Canaveral area. Port Canaveral, geez, when it was first becoming a tourist port. Those are situations where, yeah, I needed to do some dramatic things to really make them stand out. But on a day-to-day basis, when I was the resume expert for all the professional associations, the most creative thing I did was having like the first letter of the first name and the last name be a larger size than the other letters of the name, and using subtle, bits of color. So I'm not talking about, oh, you have to be necessarily dramatically fancy like the High Design Tory Award wins. I am more talking about the element of when a resume arrives in front of someone, it should have visual cues that help someone immediately. Not, I'm going to read it and hope I find stuff. It's literally you're designing an advertising piece, a marketing brochure where you have thoughtfully said, I can't use a long paragraph because nobody's going to read that. And people lose their attention every 3 to 6 seconds. And that means that they might skip over something really critical. What can I do to draw the eye? And you're also going to balance it. We don't want to have one letter on a line by itself, one word, because that's a lot of wasted space, and it breaks up an otherwise attractive design. So you might do things like, instead of paragraphs, you have, little segments in your summary instead of paragraphs in your job. Or the other thing I see people go, oh, I'll just make bullets. You know what 10 bullets in a row with no spacing between them looks like? A whole lot of text. It looks like a whole lot of text, and I don't want to read it. So maybe there's titles on the bullets. Maybe there's headers between bullets, making them shorter bullet lists. Maybe there's bullets with sub-bullets. You look to do things that makes your content as easily and quickly consumable as possible and draws the eye. I love doing bullets. If I need to put multiple bullets, I love putting titles like bolded and italicized with a colon. Was that an easy skill to figure out when I want to decide to do that as a resume writer over 2.5 decades ago? It was not, because I was like, what is the overarching theme of this particular bullet, and how do I say it in 2 to 4 words and not make this too long? I had to build that muscle. But for somebody looking at a resume and going, oh, strategic planning, oh, this, it was very, 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 very valuable to allow them easy access to what they were looking for, because not everybody's looking for the same thing. Help them navigate with vector points. It makes me think of when I got stem cells. Most people get experimental stem cells and they just get an IV of it. And when I got stem cells, yes, I got the IV, but I also got targeted paste at the area of my disease, with the understanding that that would be like a homing beacon, a vector for the stem cells to go to. And it's the same thing when you use visual cues in a resume, and you do things that make it balanced, and you do things that space it out and don't make it too crowded or too funky of a font. So take the time to look at resumes. Again, the Tory winners that I'm going to connect to. In this book, there are resumes from there's probably over 100 resumes in here, from Tory winners and other CDI members that all meet what I consider to be the parameters of nice balance. And if you're a CDI member, check out the amazing video tutorials we have from award winners. And if you want to take it to the next step, as I know some of you have, go get our Marie Plett. Now, she does have some of her tutorials are free in CDI, but then we have an entire course that you can buy for a really reasonable amount, less than you'll make off of the next resume you do. She even teaches how to make graphic resumes ATS friendly. All right, let's see. Ari said to the last one about crossing the bridge. Love that analogy. I work a lot on the psychological aspects of the job search, mindset, and appealing to employers by pacing, and mirroring. Perfect. I love it. And Janine says, I use cross-bridging because I work with the military and need to translate their military experience to align with the civilian sector. See, she's got it down to like a phrase, cross-bridging. All right. And Janine says, I love your book with all the examples and the CDI resources. All right. So curious to know who here, not a necessity, I'm just curious, who here leans more towards graphic elements in their resumes versus classic, or are you just situational and do both? I know some people only do one or the other, so I'd love to know. Let me know in the chat. If you don't do resumes, that's okay too. Ari, I know you don't. So, all right, we're up to 9. Ninth is don't just list data, but tell stories using I have to go find what new acronym I want to use, because forever I have used CAR, which stands for Challenge, Action, Result formula. However, because I run the Certified Career Storyteller course in CDI, which is, by the way, ridiculously phenomenal and deep. I didn't create that one. Kimberly Robb Baker, multi-time Toria Award winner, did, and I just happen to have a couple students going through it with me right now who just blow my mind with their assignments. But I find myself over and over again saying to them, lead with results, because of the way people consume information and the fact that they don't keep reading, and they can very, very quickly get distracted. So it's not challenge, action, result as an order, but it's more of result, action, result, challenge, action. Achieved this when faced with this by doing this. So if you're a job seeker and you're like, wait, what did she just say? I'm just specifically saying, move your resume from a responsibilities heavy, or all the resume writers who are guilty of this. I don't ever want to see the words responsible for in a resume, or conceptually see that type of language in it. You want, whenever humanly possible, to get beyond the surface. Yes, I have the skills because I do that in my job, to how well you do it, what challenges you overcome at doing it. And you can't necessarily tell every story, but more people are trying to find one story versus multiple stories. So always look at, and this is how I start my resumes with, when I used to work with job seekers, I would take their former resume and put all the bullets down the left-hand side of my Word document from their most recent position. And then I would look at a couple jobs they were targeting. I would do my own research, add some items we might need to talk about below that. And then we would go through them. And that is where I would do those, rabbit digging for the carrot questions on each and every responsibility, because responsibilities, all they do is set you up to get into the maybe pile. And you might be perfectly qualified for a job. Your candidate might be perfectly qualified for a job, but it's very often they're not going to get any further because other candidates are exciting the prospective employer and they're getting the interviews. All right. In terms of graphical and classic, Janine says, I used to do traditional only, but now it's situational. I have been working with C-suite executive client and have created graphical resumes. I am loving it. Yeah, I love just if you have the skill, this is the beautiful thing about learning, is that when you have the skill, you have the knowledge, you have the confidence, you don't have to worry that this thing is hanging over your shoulder going, maybe you'd be better at this if you also knew that. And that can create imposter syndrome and insecurity and all sorts of stuff that you don't need. But knowledge is power. Learn it and you have it. And you can decide to apply it, as Janine said, situationally, which is what I did. Some of my resumes, they were always clean and visually attractive, but some of my resumes have literally been multi-dimensional. We did a puzzle in a paint can that was part of a 4-week mailing series that was just mind-blowing, that helped my client go from painter to becoming the creative director of WB Network, which I think is CW now. But you look at the situation, you get to be super excited about doing something totally out of the box, but that is like way out there. That's not standard. All right, Sean says, I keep things simple with subtle design elements, spot shading the heading, using small capitals and that sort of thing. I go for crisp and minimalist and use design that facilitates reading flow. Perfect. Ari says, puzzle in a paint can is so cool. Love it. Yeah, that was that's how I became the director of Tory Awards for PRWRA, which I turned into CDI, because that was one of my entries the first year of Tories that did win. It's very, very cool. I still have, because I was like, I have to own one of these paint cans, but there's a whole puzzle in a paint can, and there's a whole story there. It's very cool. Okay, and I do want to do a session on out-of-the-box resumes to give people ideas, because there are just so many things you can do that are so neat. Okay, so let me see here. What was that, number 9, I think? Sorry, I didn't mean to get distracted there. So 10 is going to sound really, really, really simple, and you're going to be like, oh, Laura, we take that for granted. But I'm going to tell you that in the 2 or 3 times over the years where I've been a presenter at a CDI PRWRA live conference and I've been asked to talk about awards, I've always done a little group quiz where I give everybody a list of resume content things and have them go through. And they're always amazed that it's the simple things that most often tank the best resumes. So number 10 is literally to proofread, and I would highly recommend have someone else proofread. There are resume writers out there that pay proofreaders. There are resume writers like I was, where I also had it in my contract that the client was responsible for final proofreading, because like I've literally had people bring me their old resume with the wrong phone number on it. Of course, if you tell me that's your phone number when I ask you and I put it on the new resume, and later you come back and say, you put the wrong phone number on my resume, and I pull up the scanned copy of your old resume that has that phone number on it, how could I know that, right? So this is a partnership, but I want job seekers. If there's a job seeker watching this, hear me, because when I see posts on social media about errors in resumes, I see job seekers get, not all, but I see enough of them get very hot-headed and angry about, it's human to make mistake. Everybody makes errors. It shouldn't be held against me, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, if I'm going to pay somebody a salary, I would like to think that the thing that they do for themselves would be the place they'd potentially put the most quality in. And if I'm immediately seeing electrical engineer on their resume instead of electrical engineer, yes, super easy to miss that for sure, but multiple sets of eyes could have caught it. But if I see that, I'm going to be concerned that, let's say if we say software engineer, let's go with that. I saw electrical engineer when I was hiring, but say software engineer, because if somebody overlooks an error in their own marketing tool, what are the chances that they're going to make one tiny little error in the code they're writing, right? I mean, software coding and errors are not a good mix. So you need to really recognize that errors count and they will hurt you. So even though most people look at it and go, it's fine, read it from the last word forward, ask a couple people to take a look who will actually look at every word. If you're trying to do this yourself, go on to and you just don't want to hire somebody. Although I do see that be the fastest way for many job seekers to be successful is to work with a pro who does this for a living, the same way you'd work with a licensed dentist or CPA or, anything like that you trust something professional with. Hint here. Your resume is the thing that unlocks the salary that pays for the dentist and the CPA and the car and the vacation and the house and the whatever else. So that should be something to invest in, right? But, pay a proofreader if you don't trust anybody who's around you. You can find them and you can look at their ratings on, these sites out there like Upwork and Guru and Fiverr. To make sure you're not missing anything, because it does matter. It really, really does. And I'm guilty of it. I thought I did all the right things with a tiny little pocketbook I published. Every time my artist and graphic layout, I had an artist and I had a graphic layout person. Every time I had to make a change, I literally read the entire book from the last word to the first word. It was so painful. And guess what? I missed the fact that on the inside flap, at one point, somebody backspaced and took the last digit off of the phone number, which was the way to call about, what is the word? Not wholesale pricing, but volume pricing. 4,000 copies of the book. We had to go through and put 4,000 stickers over that look like this. Oh, we did this on purpose, right? But yeah, that was painful. So, all right, Ari says, that's why I don't write resumes. I send clients to the experts for that. I work with them on coaching needs. And Ari, I really wish more people were like that, because we're swimming upstream. Professional resume writers are swimming upstream because true professional resume writers, because job seekers, who a lot of today's resume writers used to be, it's always the whole, you're the best person to write your own resume, when I'm sorry, I studied nonfiction writing and autobiography writing, and that is in college and graduate school, and that is literally the hardest kind of writing to do, because you take for granted what your audience knows and can grossly leave out important information. And also, you don't write resumes for a living and you don't market for a living. But so we have this huge issue of job seekers who are misled, and they're hurting themselves by trying to do it themselves and then competing against people who went to award-winning resume writers. And then we also we're in this horrifying era right now of people deciding to become resume writers. This is an unregulated industry, and they're coming in with the same knowledge base as they had as a job seeker, and unfortunately being misled through certification mills that that's okay, that's enough. And then we have all these resumes out there that are crappy, and now it's like, well, professional resume writers are horrible and they're scams, and this is why people say these things, but they're not. And that's why it becomes like this huge issue for us all to educate, if this is our career and we take it seriously, for us to be in professional associations like CDI and become certified and renew our certifications, not just go, oh yeah, I was certified 20 years ago and I'm still doing the same thing and that's good enough. It's not. It's not. You have to change with the times, because the times do change. This is marketing, and this is ATS, and this is people who think differently than they did 10, 20 years ago in consuming content. All right, Ari says, yep, people don't get it. I'll just run it through AI. Ugh, yeah, exactly. Okay, that is it. I do have I kept saying I had an 11th, so very, very quickly. That is it's not relevant to everyone. I almost made it like 10.5, but then I didn't want it to be part of 10. So it's 11. And that is simply, if you are making a change, sorry, I have an itch really bad. If you're as a job seeker, or your client is making a change, and you need to do like those keywords and put content in, one of the things I do is I put a title on my keyword section. So this is only super relevant when the person does not have experience beyond like education or books they've read, because education can come from anywhere, or it's unpaid experience. It's not going to show up traditionally. You can't say these are their key areas of expertise, in other words. So my heading is key areas of knowledge, skills, and training, or knowledge, skills, and training. Because when you use a header like that, you are able to put in the things that your new graduate, the keywords that your new graduate learned that match the job. And it's not a lie, because it's either knowledge, it's either skills, or it's areas of training, which are in a way areas of experience. They just may not be applied in a working environment yet. And that is somewhat the cross the bridge language thing, but not so much. That's why I made it 11. And it also applies to, I'm big on adding in segments. Like, I know people have no problem adding like paid and unpaid mentorships and whatnot in their work history. I never put anything under education. If it's relevant to the target, I will bastardize my professional experience section, and then change the title of that section to make sure I can include. I'll actually put full electrical engineering, full-time student, University of Florida. And the dates. I will put that in a timeline. I have prefaced it with the fact that this is a student, and I am going to talk about projects and papers and case studies and things like that. I will do the same thing with unpaid volunteer work because I see it as experience. And that's usually what I would just call it, is relevant experience instead of professional experience or key employment experience. I would call it relevant experience, because experience is experience. And I can tell you, for 7 years running a university placement program where, over 90% of my students found jobs at living wages within 90 days of graduation, making us the top placement out of 11 campuses in 2 countries for all those 7 years. I can tell you that it works. It works very, very well. Even in today's ATS world, because you still have experience in that title. You just don't have, and you can say, okay, well, I need to put employment in that header. I'm afraid of ATS. Relevant experience and employment. There's always tweaks, and I share so many different approaches to different challenges in Resumes for Dummies. Okay. Let me see. All right, that's it. Questions, comments, let me know in the chat. And while you're doing that, I'm going to tell you about the upcoming episode. So again, we're building towards September as Update Your Resume Month. And last week, great foundational information. And next week, we're going to stay in the same vein. I know it's like, let's, get exciting, Laura, but foundation is exciting because it's important, and it's from where everything grows. So next week, I'm going to be talking about what not to do in resume writing for winning outcomes. And I would love to just be able to tell you that it's just do the opposite of the top 10 things to do, but it's honestly not that simple. I'm going to have to actually figure out how to be brief about this, because I'm going to be talking about topics to avoid, poison words, and tricky elements and components in the resume. So that is my topic for today and what we're doing next week, Wednesday at 3:45. So be sure to like, follow, and subscribe so you can see more. And if you do want more between shows, I'm going to be sharing links. I said this earlier, I'll just reiterate. I'll be sharing links to Update Your Resume Month resources and some of the lessons and tools I've talked about on CDI's replay page. So if you are currently an association member or you subscribe to our list, you will receive a link so you can go there and get that. And for you job seekers who have joined us today, we do have a special place for you on the website. Just go to careerdirectors.com and click on the job seeker link. and navigation, and that will take you to a page where you can search our directory of members and certified pros. You can access so many resources and tips. For career pros who aren't current association members, I want to point you to our free stuff page. And let me just throw up here on the screen, not vomiting, throw up. Sorry, but this is, if you go to careerdirectors.com and you click on free stuff, or you put in this URL, you're going to go to this page that has lots of great information on it. You can join our Facebook community that I mentioned earlier. You can delve into a variety of CDI lessons like a taste test. We do have 2 testimonials on our page from people who use the resources. One of them says, hey, I built a 6-figure practice from your free resources. Why on earth would I not join? Current member of CDI. I believe earned our certified advanced resume writer too. But there's a lot of value there. And I always say, if it's that good on the outside, imagine what you get on the inside. However, again, lots of good stuff. I strongly recommend you take the quiz. The quiz is at the top of our website. The number one thing blocking you from a 6-figure income as a career industry pro. You're going to find out what we believe your number one blocker is based on your answers, but also, and this is super valuable, it's going to curate those free resources and tell you what you should focus on. And so even if you're already a CDI member, it gives you a sense of, this is the resources I should be targeting in the member section first, this topic, because there's a lot of good stuff. And if you're not a member, it's going to help you figure out where to focus, but it's also going to get you on our list so you can get a copy of the replay and other opportunities as they come up. So that is that. And now I know some of you are hanging out with me for the who's going to walk away with a copy of the book today, right? So let me just see here. It was very easy to pick last week based on participation. And I think I'm going to do the same thing again. And that means that, and unless I'm told the person already has a Kindle copy, that my selection for today based on participation, and I know I said that was a hint at the beginning that I was probably going to do that again. I do so honor the fact that Sean and Janine and Arisha, Ari showed up a lot, but Ari definitely was the leader in that. So Ari, send us an email at info@careerdirectors.com, and I will get you out a link. That is something I'm purchasing for you in support of making everyone better at what we do, and also promoting September is Update Your Resume Month. So I hope I will see you all here again next week, whether it's for a chance at the book or it's just because you love getting all this advice and strategy. Thanks for hanging out and staying with me the whole time. I appreciate it. And I will see you flying higher. Job seekers, resume writers, career coaches, we can do this.